In Creo Parametric 10.0, there are enhancements to dimension patterns and patterns of patterns. Like I've covered in a couple other videos, you can now create a pattern with one instance, and in a pattern of a pattern, you can increment the number of instances in the previous pattern. Let's take a look at another effect that you have. You can now drive patterns by a datum graph for the number of instances. So here I have a part model. I have a hole in my part. Let's select that hole, and I will choose to create a pattern of that hole. And so for the dimensions that I'm going to increment, I will choose this dimension, and I will use the increment 50 as suggested, but I'm going to change the number of instances to just one and hit the check mark. And so there I have my first pattern. Now I'm going to create a datum graph. To do that, I'll go to the datum overflow menu. Here is the graph command, and I'm going to accept the default name for the graph. That puts me into sketch mode. The one thing that is absolutely required in a datum graph is a coordinate system for the origin of the graph. So I'm going to drop that in there. And now I'm going to throw in some center lines. I like to throw in some center lines for my x-axis and my y-axis. In this case, I'm also going to put a couple other center lines in here to help me create my graph. I'm going to have my left and right limits, or rather my right limit and the height of the chart. And I know I'm going to put 40 instances into my pattern, so let's change that value. And I want the maximum number of instances to be 32, so let's change that and adjust to see the entire area. And for the shape of my datum graph, you can use any of your different sketching tools. I'm just going to create a spline. Let's have it start out in the middle, and I'm just going to do a bunch of clicks and just create a shape over here, and let's go to there. And you have all your different points on here. If you want to adjust the ones, you can throw in other different dimensions, like I can dimension from here to here, and then put my dimension. I'm going to use a value of 16 there. Let me just grab this dimension, move it out to the side, and let's throw in another dimension from here to here, and middle mouse button, let's change that to a value of 25. Okay, so there is my graph that I'm going to use. Okay, there we go. I decided I didn't want something so sine wave looking, and so I decided to make a few other additional tweaks to my graph just by dragging some of the different points. So that is good. Let's hit the check mark in order to complete out of here. I'm going to grab my graph feature. I'm going to drag it to appear before the hole and the pattern in the tree. So now I will go to the pattern of the hole with one instance. Let's go to the pattern command. And for the different dimensions that I'm going to increment, let's use this one. And I'm going to use a spacing of 50. Let's create 40 instances. That's why I use that value of 40 in the datum graph. Now I'm going to hold down the control key and select the dimension for the number of holes. Initially, I'm just going to hit the enter key, but now I'm going to select that dimension. I'm going to choose to define the increment by a relation. Let's hit the edit button, and it opens up the dialog box for my relations. Also, it opens up the symbols usage dialog box so you can see the different values that you are using. Let me get rid of the flashing. There we go. And so for my relation I'm going to use in this case, it's going to be member underscore v. This is going to be equal to, I'm going to use that special function floor to round down. You could also use CEIL for ceiling or nothing whatsoever. It'll end up rounding the number appropriately based on the graph values. Okay, so after floor, I'm going to use the other special function, eval graph, and open parentheses. The first argument to eval graph is the name of the datum graph. In my model tree, that is graph underscore 1, close quotation, and then we are going to extract the x value by using IDX1. IDX is for the number of instances, And let's close the parentheses for the eval graph function and then close for the floor function. So that is good. I can hit the verify button if I want to check the relations. Yes, they are fine. And now let's click the OK button. And let me adjust so that we can see the whole model on the screen. And I'm going to hit the check mark, and I'm going to have this run at a fast speed. But one thing, take a look at the bottom of the screen. You can see that it is generating quite a bit of instances. Anyhow, let's hit the check mark and let it run. All right, there we go. So you can see how it matches the shape of my datum graph. You'll notice that the very first one just has one instance, even though I put 16 in the datum graph. So you might want to go back to the original pattern and edit definition. And in that case, if I wanted to have 16 there, well, let's change the value to 16 and hit the check mark. Now it is going to regenerate again, and it will be matching the datum graph. So there you have it, the Creo Parametric 10.0 enhancements for dimension patterns and patterns of patterns.